Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back. I'm Ben Canning.
And I'm Dave Kennedy.
Did you forget you were here?
I was like, wait, we're starting already? Okay.
Who am I? And this is Hacking Your Health podcast.
Rock
So what's up?
Eminem, huh?
Yeah, what do you think?
Good shirt. I dig Eminem. He's good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I got caught up. I didn't know if you noticed this, and this is for anybody. If you are on the artist's profile on Spotify, it tells you like loads of stuff. So like when they're playing, when they're releasing new stuff, and then merch. So obviously I was like, ooh, t-shirts, and then yeah, exactly. So that's how I've ended up here.
No, I'm doing good, man. I'm a little bit beat up. I got in a car wreck 2 days ago. So that was my first actual car accident that I've ever been in. So that was kind of interesting. But my fault. I was driving in this. It's actually a completely vacant parking lot. There's nothing there. And then there was a parking lot to the left that I was trying to get to. And you had to kind of cut over. And there's a guy basically cutting all through traffic. And I was focused on him. And my blind spot was this big ass light pole that I basically ran into going 25 miles an hour that I just didn't see it. Like it was literally right in a perfect blind spot as I'm trying to hook left a little bit while this guy's coming left. It was like a perfect circle of events.
Did the other guy stop?
Yeah, he stopped and came out. He's like, "Are you all right? You're all right." Like, yeah, so he's a super nice guy. And it wasn't his fault. You know, he was just trying to get, out. And the parking lot's really weird because there's like no exit there. And so you have to like kind of cut through like other places. So, anyways, I got beat up fairly decently in the arms, in my legs and a few other places. My car's jacked up. But I am good, which is the best part about it.
Thankfully, it wasn't a protein shake.
It wasn't a protein shake. So if you look
that would have been so bad.
If you look at the car wreck picture, I had just gone to Starbucks, literally like 3 minutes before, and I had one sip of my grande flat white latte, and I'm holding it in my hand, and I'm driving, and I'm paying attention to this guy to the left, and I'm not distracted. I'm like literally aware of everything that's going on around me. And then I hit this damn pole at 25 miles an hour, and the coffee goes everywhere. I mean, it went everywhere. It's all over the windshield, the dash, inside the dash. It is everywhere. So that's going to be milk that's going to be sitting there for months, rotting in the hot sun.
That was my point about the protein. Like, if you've ever opened the protein shaker that has like, can you imagine that at that scale in your car?
Yes.
Like that would make the car take the car right off the freaking smell of it.
Yeah. So
I'm glad you're okay. I know it's a serious matter, but I'm just
yeah. No, I got it. Another thing, I got a nice little gash here, and then my hand got smashed, and then my leg got rocked. But I'm pretty sure because of all the weight that I lifted, I didn't get as hurt. So. The muscles definitely took a little bit of the brunt, and I was a little bit sore afterwards. But I got my lift in today. Took a day off yesterday just to make sure I was okay and, didn't have any concussions or anything stupid like that. But not stupid. I mean, it would obviously have sucked if I had a concussion, but make sure I didn't hurt myself being stupid lifting afterwards. So took a day off and back at it, and did some great rack pulls today and some back exercises, and feeling swole right now. It's good.
Good. I think so what you're saying is lifting weights helps in all areas of life.
That's right, including getting in car accidents, apparently. So, I don't recommend that, by the way. Don't recommend that.
We're not recommending car accidents. That's good. I'm glad you're okay.
How are you?
That's cool. I'm actually really good. I have had a bit of a funny week because I'm trying to plan stuff that I don't usually do. So I've been planning my next trip over for in real life coaching. I'll tell you one thing, it's hard to plan to organize like a big group of people in a city that you've never been to. Shout out to Daniel for being my like resident in Nashville. But like, see, trying to organize like, right, we'll be here, we'll do this, and actually make decisions for a group of people. Shit show, wouldn't recommend. Yep. Aside from that, trying to build out what will be the new group coaching model, which I'm really excited for because I think it'd be cool. I've been on a couple of like coaching courses and seminars. I've been up to a lot. I've been doing a lot.
That's awesome, man. It's cool that you're always continuously kind of like progressing and always adding on and learning more. And, you were obviously gone this last weekend, learning more about, how to screw your muscles up even more. But it's that continual learning, right? We don't know everything. There's always things to learn. There's new advancements. There's new ways of doing things. And, you're always cutting edge on all of that and trying to, do as best you possibly can, help people out. It's really awesome.
Yeah. The thing about, so it was a biomechanics, last weekend in Birmingham, and it's about understanding how your body moves and how you can optimize or maximize what you're doing when it comes to training. And like the more I get into it, the less that I know. Like it is such a
isn't that crazy?
It is such a deep rabbit. I was like, I've been training for like 8 years and I don't know any of this shit. This is like, it's a bit like, oh shit, but it's also like, how much more do I have to go? Do you know how to be able to make the progress that I have now with this stuff? Now, it's not for everybody, and it's not something I'm going to use quite regularly because it's a lot of like scientific, it's a lot of like talking about graphs and talking about, fractions and equations, which isn't exciting for a lot of people, especially when it comes to training. But it did really, I was talking to Jock yesterday, I think, and he was describing something about how he was feeling his triceps in a certain movement. And I was like, are you doing it like this? And I was able to pinpoint exactly what he was feeling and why he was feeling it. So being able to sort of take the things that I was learning at the weekend and actually use it to understand where people are sort of not going wrong, but where you could potentially improve to make sure you're getting a good connection with the muscle that you're trying to get. It was very cool. It was very cool. And the voice note I sent you could probably tell me how excited I was.
You were really excited. You're like, this is so cool. It was awesome. Yeah, it's great.
But it's good. Cool. And it's like, it's the sort of stuff that we'll do whenever I'm over there, but it's just about, I want to say this in the, hear me the right way on this. It's about how can we fuck you up even more, but not fuck you up in a negative way. Like how can we fuck you up to the point where it's an enjoyable experience, if that's a true thing. But you get the most from each exercise, like matching strength profiles of machines to, or resistance profile of machines to strength profile of your muscle, like stuff like we've done with the band and stuff before, but at a whole different scale.
Well, it's all about optimization, right? And how do you tackle your muscles in a different way to fatigue them so that you can experience muscle hypertrophy or strength growth or whatever else from the fast twitch, slow twitch fibers in your muscles. And what's interesting is, when you get to like optimization, it's more than just going in and doing a workout. You're like, hey, how can I do this exercise in a different way that allows me to tackle my muscle in a different way that maybe it hasn't done it before, challenge that muscle in a certain way. And I was just listening to, and I'm going to be mentioning Huberman very, very heavily this podcast. So everybody beware. I need to get a Huberman clip for the soundboard because all I got is like, good. Yeah, that's all I got for that. But I'll have to get one before the podcast ends or something. But what's interesting with what Huberman was explaining on the mind-muscle-body connection, which a lot of people just think it's bro science where, like, oh, what is this, mind, muscle, body connection? That's bullshit. If you're tackling your muscle, you're tackling your muscle. There's actually like scientific evidence to show that, if you focus on your muscle, that connection between your mind and muscle, you actually have a 15% increase in muscle hypertrophy and growth with that muscle and exhaust it faster because you're really focusing on that muscle as you're going and doing that exercise. So that's why when you hear, a lot of trainers, you hear a lot of bodybuilders talk about their mind muscle body connection. It's a legit thing where you're focusing on that contraction if you're doing a bench press, you're focusing on that contraction in your chest and making sure you're just pounding those muscles as hard as you possibly can. And that's an awesome thing that you're continuously trying to figure out ways to do it and have fun with it too. Like today is a good example. I was doing pull day today and I absolutely love rack pull, so I always do those. But, I had this new, it's called the Bulldog from Sarnex, which is a company that Jocko uses all the time. Good. And so it's this thing that goes onto your rack. If you're going to purchase it, make sure you have the really big bolt holes in your rack, not the small ones. So if you have like a Rogue Monster Light, it's not going to fit those holes. It's got to be the bigger holes. Luckily, my Rogue Rhino has the big holes on there. But it's just a small bench that you can lay down on. And you're supporting yourself via your chest and allows me to do some really good isolated rows as I'm going up. And I can feel that mind-body connection as I'm going through and hitting those back muscles. And so, what's great about the flexibility of understanding how your body works is that even though my programming that you programmed for me said, hey, you need to do landmine rows, I still did landmine rows, but I also did bulldog rows too, because I was like, I feel like doing bulldog rows, and being able to incorporate those or add new things or just try out different things is what it's all about. And it's a lot of fun as you're going through and just figuring out, hey, how can you, wreck your body in a different way that challenges your muscles in a different way.
Yeah, I think the voice note that you sent me was, I was listening to Andrew Huberman, and that thing that you were talking about, my muscles actually a thing, as if you didn't believe me until Andrew Huberman told you that it was actually a thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's exactly that, and that sort of ties into what I was doing at the weekend. Like, the more that you can understand about how your body moves and about how machines work, the more that you can sort of play about with things and have fun with things. Fun, if that's your thing. But about actually, I think the biggest thing that I took away from it was it's how can you get the most from your training. So a simple example that I'll talk about is, and you'll know what I'm talking about in this, on a dumbbell lateral raise, if you're stood like this, and for anybody who's not watching, I'm doing it and I'll probably look like it, but if you stand like this, whenever you have the dumbbell in your hand and the arm by your side, your shoulder's not doing anything. It's easy. Like, you could hold the dumbbell all day long. As you bring the dumbbell out and further away, that's whenever it's most difficult. So you're most difficult whenever that's in the shortened range. The reason that that's not an optimal exercise is there's so much of the range that your shoulder's not really doing much work, or it's strong in. So to get that, to optimize that, we would do, as we do cables, because the cable has the resistance the whole way through.
Continual tension as you're going up,
Yeah, and if you don't have cables, the way that they described to do it was, if you lie down like on a bench at like a 30-degree, your arm, where the dumbbell is and your arm straight, is actually the furthest away point there. So the tension comes from the bottom and it gets easier on the way up. So you can challenge it in a slightly different way. So just understand that, which is cool for me, because obviously everybody who comes to me has different equipment that they can train with. So knowing how I can maximize what they have versus just going, just do this, and it's not as efficient. Because I think, as I sort of touched on before, if you're going to spend the time training, you want to be as efficient and as effective with it as possible.
Yeah, and one of the ones I saw recently was a preacher curl. There's a Facebook site that I look at. It's just like form and technique of people doing like different exercises and things like that. But someone was doing a hammer curl.
Is that what you do in your spare time?
That's pretty much what I do in my spare time. Like, that's a cool exercise. I'm gonna try that. But his hand is over the preacher curl, and he's doing hammer curls with it. So it's isolating, but he's getting constant tension the entire time. And you can just see, the full rotation of his bicep as he's going up and down and just pounding that muscle, right? And again, it's just really cool when you get into those nitty-gritties that allows you to try different things, expand your horizons on different exercises. You're not just doing the exact same thing every single time. Just neat stuff. I love it. Love it.
Yeah, and I think the coolest thing about this, and I said this to you last week, the more muscle you build, the more leverage you have to build more muscle, which for some reason absolutely blows my mind. So you're talking about your bicep there. The deeper your bicep muscle is, the more leverage that you have coming from the tendon, so the more of an angle. So the better it is to build muscle because of the angle. So if you imagine the tendons come down straight from elbow to shoulder, it's going to be difficult because you don't have much leverage. The more leverage you have, the easier it becomes to build muscle. So technically, the more muscle that you have and the deeper, like the denser
muscle you can build,
belly, the more muscle you can build. I was like, this is blowing my mind.
I feel like when I first started training, the muscle building process, I had like really quick strength gains, but the size of the muscle wasn't a big thing. But I do feel like as I've progressed, my muscles are starting to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm noticing that kind of change, which is nice. And so, I feel like I can continue to build muscle and much more muscle and get stronger and everything else, but it's at a faster rate, not slower rate that I would typically expect,
Yeah, well, I think, the sort of other side of the coin to that is whenever you're in that initial period, your body's in the best position to build muscle. So yes, it will slow down from that perspective, but then this sort of thing will come in as, the leverage that you have, and if you can perform the exercises correct, will start to kick in, and that's how you sort of optimize it. So, percentage-wise, which is more, not really sure, but I just thought it was cool that you have that opportunity whenever the shape of your body starts to be more optimal to do the thing that you're doing. I just thought it was very cool.
Yeah. And so leading on to one quick topic that I wanted to cover that I thought was really interesting, and we talk about how we are against diets very often. And when we say we're against diets, we're not against people that have certain goals and objectives in mind, and they use a framework to help them, right? And I think that's important. But why we're against diets in general what I would say the health culture has put into diets is because they're not sustainable long term, and they don't allow you to hit your objectives and goals. If your goal is just to lose 20 pounds, which it's not going to be, you're not going to be happy losing 20 pounds. What does that mean? How do you sustain that long term if that's what you want? Or how do you lose more weight? Or how do you build muscle? There's all of these things that you have to know in order to do a diet well and then come off of that diet into something that's sustainable. And so one of the really popular, and I use diets in quotation marks because it's not really a diet. It's kind of a framework, which I think is a good thing, around how you can eat. And we've talked about intermittent fasting before, or feeding windows before in the past. And, it got a lot of popularity because people would claim that this is kind of the holy grail for losing weight. And so all of the diet folks kind of came in and said, oh yes, intermittent fasting, it's the new way to lose weight. It's much more efficient at losing weight, keeping it off and losing more weight because your body basically is optimizing itself, cleaning itself up, and then you're restricting how much you eat during a window. Now, I just want to be perfectly clear. I'm a huge fan of intermittent fasting. I use intermittent fasting often because there's some really good health benefits. Digestive breaks, giving your body time to not have to deal with continuous food digestion is awesome for you. There's some studies on mental acuity and your body kind of ramping up from a energy perspective when you're in a fasted state because, we've talked about this before, but, in the caveman days, when we had to go out and forage food, or if we had to protect our families, if we were starving and we had no energy, we wouldn't be able to do that and we would just die off. So our bodies actually go kind of into an overdrive mode and become more mentally acute. We have, better responses, more mental clarity, ability to move faster, higher energy levels when we are in essentially a starved state. And so, with that, our body basically cleans up all of the toxins and all of the junk that we have in there and uses it as fuel. It rebuilds things stronger. So there's some really good benefits to intermittent fasting. And when I'm in a caloric deficit, I typically always do intermittent fasting because it's much easier for me to hit my calorie goals if I, for example, skip breakfast, which is probably the biggest one that I can easily cut out without having any major issues. So I'll typically not eat until like 11 o'clock in the morning. And then from there, my feeding window is usually from like 11 to like 7 or 8. And then that's the only times that I eat. And I usually have no problems being able to fit my calories in. So that's a great framework to use if you're looking at caloric restrictions. You're looking at optimizing your health and your digestive tracts. But what's interesting is that the health industry was using it as a way of saying this is a much more advanced way to lose weight and that there's benefits to losing weight based off of intermittent fasting. And so there was just a recent study that came out from the New England Journal of Medicine. And basically they did 139 patients, both men and women, and then they went through intermittent fasting. And they also did a study on intermittent fasting versus caloric restriction. So caloric restriction being, if your total daily energy expenditure of what you burn from a calorie perspective is 2,000 calories, and they put you in a caloric restriction of, let's just say, 200 calories per day, and they did the same thing for somebody in intermittent fasting. They were, 2,000 calories per day, went to 1,800, and they were doing intermittent fasting. What they found from a research perspective, peer-reviewed, studies, is that there is no added benefit for weight loss between intermittent fasting and caloric restriction, which means that basically, the laws of thermodynamics, how we burn our calories, doesn't change on intermittent fasting. There isn't this magic, secret recipe that our body's going to start burning more calories because we're in a fasted state. It's basically the exact same thing. So if you're using intermittent fasting because you think it's going to be better at losing weight, that's not the case, and it's not going to be a diet that provides added additional weight loss. But again, I want to emphasize there are a lot of great things that come from intermittent fasting on top, but weight loss not being one of those. Now, when I say weight loss not being one of those, it doesn't mean that you won't lose weight on intermittent fasting. Again, if you're doing a feeding window and you're only eating between 11 and 7, and you normally would eat 3,000 calories a day, and you only eat 2,000 calories a day, and your total daily energy expenditure of calories that you use is 2,500 calories, you're going to lose weight because you're not eating as much calories as you normally would consume during the day. So, you can absolutely lose weight on intermittent fasting. A lot of people find that to be very successful for them and a framework that they can live by and kind of move towards. So I'm not saying don't do it, but if you're looking at this magic, secret, super awesome pill that's going to, lose your weight. Intermittent fasting is that. It's not actually that. The whole diet fad and all that was a total bullshit hype train as usual. And we continue to see that with every single diet that's out there.
I agree. I think the thing for me about diets, the reason that I don't like them as such are because they are too restrictive. They're not sustainable. They don't actually really explain to people how they work or why they work. And people just do them because a celebrity's doing them or the internet has told them or whatever. As you said, though, if you can build out a framework that will allow you to manage your calories, that is probably what you need. Whether that is keto, whether that is intermittent fasting, whatever.
Paleo, whatever.
Anything that you look at,
carb only diet, it's just
fucking grapefruit diet, egg diet, like every kind of diet ever. But the thing about it is, like, if you look at them fundamentally, the one thing that they have in common is if you do them correctly, they will restrict your calories in some way. So whether that is from a time perspective or whether that is keto because you take out an entire macronutrient source, there will be some sort of restriction in that will sort of get you to eat less calories. Now, I'm also a big fan of intermittent fasting. I'm doing it at the minute-ish because my calories are relatively low. Same thing that you're saying. I just push my first meal back to later on in the day. And the benefits that I find are, well, I know that I prefer more calories in the evening because it's the way that I'm built. Same. I can get away with the morning of not really eating. And the thing that you're talking about, like cognitive function and energy, the way that I would look at that, it is your body, there's no your body's not expending any energy, or there's no blood being used in your digestive system because you haven't eaten anything, so you have more available to whatever it is that you're doing. So I find that I'm more productive in the mornings. Now, I'm not saying that I'm doing intermittent fasting and that's the only way that I'm losing weight. It's because I'm managing my calories, so it's a way that allows me to restrict my calories within that window. I know, and this goes for like keto and other diets as well, that people think, oh, if I only eat protein and fats, I'll lose weight. Or if I only eat between 12 o'clock and 8 o'clock, I'll lose weight. Essentially, they're the quote-unquote rules. But if you eat like a fucking asshole between 12 and 8 and you eat 5,000 calories, you're not going to lose weight. If you eat 5,000 calories of protein and fats, you're not going to lose weight. So that's what I mean about having the framework and understanding how it works and how it restricts calories, and you can use it. And the same idea even with keto, like my first meal of the day is protein and fats. It doesn't mean that I do intermittent fasting, then I do keto, and then I'm on a different kind of diet. It's tools. You stop zooming your face in and out of the screen. It's tools that I can use and put together for things that I know work for me. And anytime I have a discovery call with a client or an onboarding call, that's what I try and get. Like, I've been very open and honest. It's like I don't have a program as such to sell you. I don't have you're going to fit into this box because this is what you told me or this is the way that your life is. It's literally a case of, right, what are you doing right now? Where's your baseline? And what can we do to improve? And we just try out different things so that you can build a structure and a framework that suits you and also have those tools. So again, like you're talking about intermittent fasting, if I'm in a calorie surplus, I don't do it because trying to fit that amount of calories in a shit window is a shit show.
Yeah.
So I will eat breakfast and I will spread my meals throughout the day, but I know that it's something that I can pull on whenever my calories are restricted.
And I think what everybody struggles with, including myself, is food. Right? We get addicted to food. Food is something that becomes a luxury for us. We've talked about this a lot on the podcast previously, but the availability of food in this country, regardless if you are low income to high income, is readily available essentially to anybody at any time. And it's an interesting thing. You don't see underweight homeless folks typically because the food is readily available, and high caloric food that absolutely is not healthy for you is readily available, right? And so we've never had that in the history of the human species. Like we've always had to forage for food. We always had to look for food. A lot of us starved and died because there was no food. We had to move and migrate in our tribes to different locations for food because we maybe became overpopulated and needed different areas that we had taken from. And so food is something that we enjoy a luxury of, and there is no limits. And it's actually an issue for us because these foods that we have, that are readily available, our bodies want. And they're delicious and they're awesome and we want more of them and we want more of them and our bodies crave more and then we want more and then more. I've struggled with obesity my whole life. And again, if you're at a weight where you're overweight and you're comfortable with that, absolutely fantastic for you. That's awesome. Be happy of who you are and where you're at. But if you're looking at how do I curve my cravings that I have because my mind is telling me I still need to eat, but I typically don't. I think these types of frameworks are absolutely essential for you because, it allows you to put some discipline in place to say, okay, I can only eat 2,000 calories. And you know what? In the morning, I'm not so hungry. So I'm not going to eat in the mornings. I'm going to eat in the afternoons. And I'm only going to eat 2,000 calories. And once I go past that, I'm done. And I know that. And I tell my mind, listen, I'm done. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be hungry and it's not going to be difficult. But what I can tell you is that you start to get used to it. And your body gets used to it very quickly. Your mind gets used to it very quickly. But you have to have that discipline to start building those habits to allow you to get to that point. And that's the tough part, right? And I was listening to Dr. Rhonda Patrick. She's got a podcast about health and longevity and things like that. And she was talking about how hard it is for us as humans to create these good habits, and then we fall off of them, and then it's okay. She had used the example at the beginning of her podcast that I just listened to. It was on muscle growth, surprisingly. I know it's crazy that I'm listening to that. But she was explaining how, you let's just say you had these great healthy habits, and then you tear a muscle, or you're incapacitated or something like that, and you're not able to get your routines in, and then all of a sudden now you're not lifting, and then you're not doing the things that make you active, and then all of a sudden now that becomes your new habit, and you don't go back out once you start to rehabilitate yourself, and then from there you start to deteriorate, and it's actually much harder for you to come back from that than it is not. So these habits that you build have to be something you stick with. It has to be something that you work on. It has to be something that you continuously improve on. And honestly, I can honestly say after 2 years of doing this that I do not have a food addiction anymore, right? I don't think about food all the time. I don't think, hey, am I going to get enough in this portion size to fill me up? I used to always think that, like, what on this meal is going to fill me up, because this doesn't seem like enough portions. What I look at is, hey, what are my calories today? Where am I at? What do I need for my body? And can I get that in this meal, or do I need to, maybe grab a salad and then, supplement the protein shake because the meals or the menu's totally shit, and I, don't want to deal with the juicy burger that has, 10,000 calories and everything else on it. So you have to think differently, and it takes some time. Like, I remember, when I first started this program with you, Ben, food was my biggest challenge by far, because I was always thinking about food, especially when I was in a deficit. I'm like, I'm always hungry. I'm always thinking about food. I just want to eat. I want to eat all the time. Why can't I eat this? My body's like, hey, you're used to giving me 3,000 calories, 4,000 calories. Give me that again. But it does change over time. And I can tell you that my addiction for food is gone. Like, and it's not to say that I don't enjoy food. I don't love food. I do. I had an awesome New York strip steak yesterday with a buddy of mine. We went out to dinner, had some cocktails, had some, old fashions, Captain Sin, one of our drinks here. And, but, I enjoyed that within my own confines of what I could do from the day. And I know what those are. I don't engorge myself. I don't sit there and just slam a bunch of food. A funny story about that. When I got home, you have a couple drinks and, and you have a big meal, and afterwards you're like, hey, I'm still kind of hungry. I want to eat something. I'm like, why am I going to eat something at 11 o'clock at night? That makes no sense whatsoever. I'm like, I'm just going to go to bed. We're good. And I went to bed, and that's the mindset that starts to change when you start going through this. And you have to focus on that as a big core concept and a framework around that will make you successful.
Yeah, I think the food thing, it's such a difficult one to overcome, because it's something that people have dealt with, gone to, used, abused for their entire life. And to sort of overcome those behaviors and overcome, like, this, to change someone's relationship with food is fucking hard, because you imagine they maybe used food as an emotional crutch, whether it was positive or negative. Whenever you're younger, shit hits a fan, let's have a cake, or celebration, let's have a cake, everybody's having cake for everything, no matter what the emotion is. So to come away from that, and to come away from those sort of, like, how you relate different situations to different foods is tough, and it does take a lot of work, and you definitely need to think about it, but it's work for your mind, but it is something that can definitely change. And even, like, I'll relate this to, I think I've told you this before, about whenever I did my first shoot, my calories were real low. Like, if you look through my phone, my photo album at that time in my life, it's like check-in photo, burger that I want to eat, like screenshots of food, like French toast, like all these incredible looking foods, like 10 photos, and then a check-in photo. And then like I'd be on Instagram or I'd be like watching YouTube videos of people like eating food and this real fucked up, like, oh, I want this and can't have it. But it's, relearning that. And I think if I sort of think about myself now and where my calories are at, yes, I had to be a little bit smarter about the way that I'm eating, but I don't have that, oh my God, I want to go and eat a burger, or oh my God, whatever. Because it's like you said, yes, okay, it is, you will struggle at the start with that feeling of hunger, but now I actually kind of like it. And I know that maybe sounds a bit fucked up. So I've been in this deficit for like, 3 or 4 weeks or whatever. And if you had told me this time last year, if you had told me this time last year, my calories would be at what they're at, I would have laughed at you. But if you're smart about it, if you know how to manage it, and if you have the tools and you have the mind to get yourself into that headspace, like I genuinely do kind of like the feeling of feeling hungry. And I think that that's something that maybe people don't get. Like if you actually sit down and think to yourself, when was the last time I actually felt hungry? Like the majority of the population probably don't really have that. They eat at breakfast time, at lunchtime, at dinner time, because they've done it their entire life. And I think that that's even one of the biggest sort of hurdles whenever you say to people to push, if they're doing intermittent fasting or push back that first meal, like at breakfast time, you will be hungry because you've had breakfast at that time for your entire life. So yes, you're going to feel hunger, but you can't get past it. And obviously, the feeling of, and again, to sort of relate back to the progress thing that we talked about last week, like the feeling of feeling hunger, but also seeing the measurements change the way you are, like that to me is the addictive part. And I'm like, if I can do this on 1900 calories, maybe I could just eat 1800 calories. And then I'm like, 1750 is not that bad. But I know that it's just, it's actually a funny story. It's like, no, usually I'd be like this, this is affecting the way that I think. And this is, I just can't fucking do anything. Like my mind's not clear. But at this time I was like, no, I'm fine. And then I sent Daniel his check-in on Monday. He was like, I really appreciate the feedback, but I just want to let you know that you reviewed week 31 and not week 32 like you were supposed to. Because I've done the whole check-in on last week's sheet. But the point that I'll make on that, and I wanted to tweet this, but I didn't want it to come across offensive, and I didn't really know how to write it without it being offensive. People will always say that they don't have the energy to do this whenever they're in a calorie deficit or whatever. Every pound of body fat that you have on your body is literally around 3,500 calories worth of energy. So you absolutely have the energy to do things. You're just making fucking excuses.
Yeah, I wasn't pausing there because I wasn't paying attention. I was pausing there because, think about that for a second. 3,500 calories or so per pound, right? That's a lot of calories. That's a lot of calories, which means that, if you want to lose weight fast, you have to put yourself in such a caloric deficit, which are going to be a total shit show from a agro perspective. Your body's not going to be happy and it's going to be dropping it. But also the point that we had made a couple podcasts, or you had made a couple podcasts ago, is that the current calories that you're burning now are not the current calories. Let's just say if you dropped 20 pounds. So if you drop 20 pounds, that's 20 less pounds that you have that you're working with. So think about every time you move. So if I'm walking, I'm carrying an extra 20 pounds, you're going to burn more calories. I mean, it's just how that works. So if you drop 20 pounds, that's 20 less pounds you're carrying. The amount of calories that you burn per day are probably going to be decreased substantially there. So, you may have to adjust accordingly based on your weight loss or weight gains. I know for me...
So it's actually an interesting point. I spoke twice about this today to both Robert and Luke. One thing that I did with Callum, one time I was going through a fat loss phase, is I matched pound for pound in weight on a backpack when I was losing weight. So my calories stayed the same. I was dropping weight, but I was
carrying a pack with you.
Ideally, you would do it like wearing a weighted vest and not with a fucking dumbbell in the backpack. But that's all I had, and it was in the middle of COVID, and I couldn't get, when you couldn't get any sort of equipment. So I matched that. So whenever I was doing my steps, I was still carrying around the same weight that I was before. That's but my body weight was less. So there are ways to match it that way.
Yeah, and it's just cool how these adjustments make a big deal. Like for me, my calorie intake is much higher, and right now we're in a surplus. So, we're trying to put as much weight on as possible in a period of time or so. But I have to imagine when we go back down and I'm starting my cutting phase, my calories will still be at a much higher elevated state based on the amount of mass that I've put on over time. and those will
I'm
probably
going to
have to
make
be
sure that
adjusted.
we're always going in opposite. So right now I've got low calories, you've got high calories. You're like, yeah, I'm doing this.
And then when you're in high calories, I'll be at low calories. So we can, one of us is positive.
yeah. Like fuck-based calorie shit. The other thing as well, and I touched on this on the call on Wednesday night, and I know you weren't there, but I'll not give you a hard time about it.
I kind of got in a car accident.
That wasn't on Wednesday night.
That was on Wednesday, a-hole. That was Wednesday when I got in a car accident.
Well, do you know what? You should have been on the call and then you wouldn't have got the car accident. But I think the thing when it comes to being in a deficit is understanding, well, for me, it's about understanding what you guys, in terms of clients, can tolerate, but for you as a person, what you can tolerate. And it just comes through trial and error. Like, if you're the sort of person that can tolerate being like further into that deficit and calories being lower so that you can sort of get in and out of the phase quicker, then by all means do that. But if you feel like you're not that sort of person and you maybe don't have the willpower and you can go like 2 weeks and then you find yourself, at the bottom of a bag of Doritos or whatever, then it's probably better to do it the other way. But there's so many different ways to do it. Like, one of the check-ins on Monday and Kevin's check-in, what we've basically decided to do is 2 weeks in a deficit, 1 week at maintenance, 2 weeks in a deficit, 1 week at maintenance. Over a period of time, he's going to be in a deficit, but he has that, okay, I'm only at this calorie goal for 2 weeks. Then my calories will go up to maintenance.
Interesting.
2 weeks maintenance. There's so many different ways to do it.
Yeah.
And I think zooming out on that will definitely help people as well.
Yeah, those cool hacks that you can do just to kind of like space things out or try things differently, shock your body into different ways. I mean, you had
the way we're going to do it for you when we go into your cutting phase is you're just going to have 1,000 calories a day and that's it.
Hey,
all protein, nothing else.
I kind of want to try it, to be honest with you. I would try it. That's what I want to see. Like, it's going to be fucking miserable. But I want to try to be like, how lean can I actually get, and try to how quickly, right? So
you know what's actually funny as well? Like, I know that I always complain about 6 week physique and beach bod and 8 week transformation and all that shit. The most recent one that I've seen is a 10-day transformation. People are selling it at 10. I'm like what the I'm like,
what are they doing?
What unrealistic expectations are you setting for people? Like,
so you're gonna completely reverse. You're gonna reverse 10 years of you eating like total crap, and in 10 days, right? That's gonna happen.
So I signed up for
it. So basically, what it's gonna be is you got to lift 16 times a day, do cardio 15 times a day. You can't eat anything at all, just water and ketones, and that's it. So
absolutely
crazy. I tell you, I hope. And it's actually interesting. Huberman brought up on the podcast that what's really interesting is that the scientific community is pretty much in line with like what's the science, what's the data, what's everything else. But then you start getting into like the PTs, the fitness, the nutrition side of the house, and they're like all at war with each other all the time. And it's there's not a lot of consistency around, hey, what does the actual science say? What does actual long-term data studies on ways that you can be successful in these types of journeys say? I'll tell you it. If you're overweight and you're obese, which obesity impacts such a large percentage here in the United States, especially, I mean, we're the worst in the world. It's very difficult to make a sustainable model around weight loss and fitness across your life, right? It's difficult to do. It's not easy to do. If it was so easy and these pills worked or these diets worked, everybody would be, looking like, I don't know, a supermodel, right? But that's not how this works, right? And so, you have to figure out something that works for you. And the reason why we created this podcast, the reason why Ben does what he does is he's had a lot of success working with a lot of people because it's a sustainable framework. Now, there's other frameworks out there. You have Noom, for example, which focuses on intermittent fasting. You have Weight Watchers, which, can basically is creating caloric restrictions based off of point systems. Like, those sometimes work for folks and sometimes they don't. But, finding what works for you and then being able to use that sustainably for the rest of your life is what we're trying to accomplish here with the knowledge that we're dropping. And I think, if you look at everything that we're talking about, it's just basics, in and out, right? Calories in, calories out, making sure you build muscles so that you burn more calories and you look better without your shirt off or, with the bikini or whatever you want to be. So it's the simple things that make long resonating, pieces of impact in your entire health and longevity and everything else that goes along with it, and you just feel better about yourself. And I just posted a tweet recently before we got on the podcast of, I got this shirt and it's a large. I would never in my life wear a large shirt based on the size of weight I am, because it would show all of my defects and how overweight I was and my gut and everything else. man, I look awesome in this shirt. Okay, I'm just saying, like, it's showing my arms, it's showing my biceps, it's showing my definition. I feel great in this shirt, right? And I'm showing all the hard work that I've done off in my body because I can wear a shirt like this. Now, most of the time, larges are too short. This is like a good feel, but it's also long enough because I'm tall and you're tall, obviously. Again, if you were short, Ben, we wouldn't be having a podcast
I feel like
together.
I'm small I feel like I'm small here.
I did that intentionally. I make sure that the win, like it continues to. I'm just gonna keep going.
There's not
like
that many people watch this. Like, do you know what I mean? It's not worth it. I can just stand like this.
Now you look like Big Ben. But it's those types of things that make a big difference, right? And I love that we're able to help out others and talk about this and like go through our experiences and what we see, because at the end of the day, like, you get to see a lot of people that you train regularly that are going through similar struggles or different struggles, and be able to provide those, and then hopefully those help, in your real life.
Good. Yeah, and it's again, we've had this conversation before about the size of t-shirt thing. Like, I want so badly to fit into a 2XL t-shirt, and I would say probably at this point it'd be your worst nightmare to have to wear a 2XL t-shirt again. And even if I sort of think a bit deeper in terms of like me with that, like, the reason that I started training originally was because I wanted to fit into my clothes. So like the shoulder fitting in, like actually being able to fit into a t-shirt that I actually, I fitted the shoulder was it where the shoulder is. And then now I'm like, I think I probably started at like a small, and I'm like, right, how can I push to a 2XL? And even where I was talking earlier on, like wearing oversized stuff, like I'm so far gone from where I was whenever I first started that I was trying to fit into my clothes, that now I'm like trying to make my clothes bigger to continue to fit into them. It's just fucking weird. But yeah, in terms of that, like, yes, you do look great in that shirt, and it's good. I mean, that's what it's about. It's about feeling good, and it's about feeling positive about your body. And, if you can find a way to do that and continue to do that, then, that's that. Even Kev Cody posted a picture of him on the beach with his kids.
Saw that.
It's just like, I
love it.
Like,
he's like, I love this.
Yeah. It's just, like that to me. And even Robert said in the he said in a check-in, but he said in the group chat earlier on about he was going for his yearly checkup or his annual checkup, and it turned into like a 15-minute sort of interrogation about what I've been doing or what I've been doing and how the improvements that he's seen just based on the way that we're doing things. And that for me is cool.
That feedback.
And talking to people about bloods and blood pressure and like, beyond just losing weight, it's what makes the whole thing. And I think that's when it comes down to what we're doing here. It's actually hacking your health, and it's not just like weight loss clinic.
It's funny because like I actually had to take my blood pressure in like 2 months. I totally escaped my mind. It's normally like a routine I do once a week, and I just kind of got out of it. I'm like, well, I wonder how my blood pressure is doing. So I went upstairs and took my blood pressure. It's like 123/70 in the green. Perfect. I'm like, okay, cool. We're good. Keep going. Like everything's great. It's just that, your body is such a machine, and having a well-oiled machine that allows you to do what you want to, help out. Like I went to my this weekend, I went and lifted legs and arms, which was horrible. Just 10% legs, 60%, unloading and loading weights. And then the next 30% or whatever is complaining to Ben. But after that, I went and helped my dad build a shed. For his motorcycles or whatever. He's moving a gazebo and stuff like that in his backyard. So like, and I'm sitting there just, carrying all the heavy shit, putting it, up. That's what I love doing. Like, it's awesome that I can do that, and I'm healthy.
Did you move the shelf for Aaron yet though?
I did move the shelf. I immediately, like, it was just a joke, honestly. So long story short, so my wife, Erin, she had asked me, she's like, hey, can you move the shelf from upstairs to downstairs so we can get rid of it? It was like an old shelf from Gavin's. And I said, well, today was legs day. Is it possible for me to move it a different day? And she's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like, what day do you want to move it? I'm like, well, tomorrow's technically, chest and triceps, so I'll be sore then. Then I have back day. Then I have another legs day. And then I have a rest day, which I'm not technically supposed to do anything. So I'm like, if I'm looking at my schedule, it's going to have to be probably like a month and a half from now, because that's when I have my deload week and I can actually do it. And she just looked at me like, you're a freaking idiot. Like, like, seriously, like, why do you even lift? Why do you even have these muscles? Like, if you can't move a damn shelf.
This
is literally the only purpose I ever ask you to do is take the kids and move shit. Like, and you can't do this. So, obviously I moved it right there and then. It was a joke, but she did not find it funny. But
you find it funny, and I thought it was funny.
I thought it was funny, so it was good. But no, and two last things I wanted to hit on before we bounce out. This will be a couple minute discussion. Number one is I'm actually looking at possibly doing spray tanning. So I wanted your advice on that. And so my first
I can actually give you really good advice on this.
Yeah, so like, I mean, like, how many coats should I get? Like, what do I even do here? Because listen, I'll be honest with everybody on the podcast. I have tried regular tanning. It goes horribly wrong. I've tried self-tanning in the tanning booths. That also goes horribly wrong. So this is my last ditch. And I've tried putting my own tanning stuff on, which goes horribly wrong. So there's a historical issue of tanning here with me. And obviously you look better with the tan, accentuates the muscles, all that good stuff. So I'm actually going to try spray tan here soon. And I was just curious, like, what I mean, one, I'm assuming I have to wear like tighty whitey type stuff, like that is like, you know, so you can.
They would give. Well, I mean, yes, do that. I was going to say they'll give you like a pair of paper pants, but you don't want to wear them. Yes, bring like tighty whitey stuff. You need to prep yourself for it, and this is going to sound ridiculous.
You have to prep yourself. Okay.
Yeah. So what you'll need to do is get a really good exfoliator.
Okay.
So to get rid of all the dead skin.
Exfoliator right now. Okay.
So what you need to do is like get rid of. I can't believe you and I are having a conversation.
Is it a glove?
Yes, a glove and then a product. What you need to do is get rid of all the dead skin, so like on your elbows and on your knees and stuff like that, because that'll stop it from going like, you know, like real cracks. So you want to have like real nice smooth skin. So that's the first thing. It's the most important one.
Really?
Yeah, trust me. The other thing, obviously hair loss. So whatever way you're going to take that off, shave it, feet, wax, whatever you need to do. The other thing is how many coats depends on how dark you want to go. The last time I got one, I got like, I think 7 or 8 coats, and I changed colour. Like I was a different colour. But I was obviously doing it for a photo shoot specifically, so I needed to be. So I would say ask them.
Yeah. What will look kind of normal? I don't want to be like ridiculous here.
No, please do not. And actually, one pro tip, and this is for everybody if you get spray tans, the last time I did it, and this is maybe going a bit too far, but it definitely helped. If you put clear nail polish on your nails, and then remove it after you spray tan, it means you won't have all that fucked up weird colouring within your nails. Because I did that on my last shoot, and it made your nails stay the same colour because it will absorb into your nails, and you do not want that because you'll have funny coloured nails.
Interesting. So
hair loss, exfoliator, clear nail polish.
So I'm
you know what?
guessing...
I get, like, these are all genuine truths, but I could literally tell you anything, and you'd be like, okay, I'm going to go do that.
So I'm googling clear nail polish as well right now. So I think we're going to be good there.
I was getting your daughter to put it on.
Sounds good.
But yes, genuinely, the exfoliator is the main one. Like really, I would do a couple of days before start doing that, because if you get rid of all the dry skin and stuff, it'll I want to say set. I don't know if that's the right term, but it'll absorb a lot better and more even. So you imagine you're getting sprayed like this, right?
Yeah.
You stood like this, and then if you go to bend your elbow, all the cracks that want to be filled in will be all cracky in your elbow.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
so you want it to be a smooth
exfoliator, clear nail polish.
Got it. All right, I'm in. I'm going to give it a shot. All right, so on another topic, the second thing I wanted to bring up before we left is the last thing that I thought was really interesting on the Huberman podcast was around, and we've talked about this to some extent, but we haven't actually gone into some of the latest research, which I thought was really kind of mind-blowing to me, and it makes a lot of sense, is that we are tribal creatures, right? And that's how we have evolved. We aren't the strongest creatures in nature. We have tigers and bears and things that are much more faster and stronger than us in every capacity. So how did we become the dominant species? Well, obviously we can think, we are aware of everything. So that's one piece, but our ability to band together in tribes and to forage and hunt, potentially superior animals to us from a, strength and speed perspective is one of the things that made us successful by being in tribes. So we have evolved through tribes, evolved through groups that allow us to forage for food, to, make clothes, to provide shelter and defense, at night. So these things have evolved us over the years. And what was interesting is that there was a recent study, and I'll have to get it in the show notes for the study that was there. But if you look at the Huberman Labs podcast, episode 10, they go through this quite a bit. But there is actually these hormones, these peptides that are released in our body called TAC2. And what they found is that these TAC2 peptides are triggered severely and elevated when we are not socially around other people. So what that means is that if we're isolated, we're not with other people, these TAC2 peptides shoot up, and have been directly correlated to depression, anger, and a whole bunch of other human behaviors that are not good for us, right? So what's interesting about that study is that when we are with humans and we are socially interactive with other humans, especially humans within our tribe and everything else, those TAC2 levels go substantially down. And so what that is obviously saying is that, if we are we're social creatures, if we're not around other human beings and we're not socially active, we are much more susceptible to depression, anger, and a lot of other things that are out there. Whereas if we're with humans and we are social, we are happier, our moods are increased. We have dopamine that gets released that is a positive enforcement in our body's natural dopamine production. So there are many benefits to being social, to going out. And I'm not saying that for folks that have social anxiety and medical disorders and other things, there aren't hurdles there. But largely the human species needs social interaction for us to be happy, for us to be accepted, for us to feel like we're contributing to tribes. So my, challenge to you out there today is, think about that and think about, are you being social? And by the way, social media doesn't count. That does not trigger dopamine inhibiting responses in a positive manner. There are some dopamine triggers there from, quick responses, likes, getting immediate feedback, those types of things, but it's not a recipe for substituting human interaction. But think about that, go out and see a friend of yours, go out and see a loved one, get that social interaction. And I'd be curious to see, how you feel from a positivity perspective. If you're feeling down, that day or the day after. I find that when I'm working with people, and it's a good thing, to talk about in the COVID situation, I didn't realize how much I miss people. So I'm in the office more because I enjoy seeing people. I like interacting with people that I like working with, my tribe, right? And so it has a huge impact on your health. And I'm just curious to see, and I'm not saying, the COVID restrictions, whatever, shouldn't happen. Obviously we were going through a pandemic and all this other stuff. But I'm curious to see the long-term effects that type of isolation of humans had, because we are tribal creatures. And I wonder how bad off our next generation of kids are going to be because of that. So hopefully it's just short term and we're back into society. We're working together. We're talking together. We're, becoming more socially interactive. But it's interesting to see those studies where the TAC2 levels of peptides increase, creating, direct correlation to depression, anger, everything else that's out there. That's a interesting piece that I didn't know about.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And I think, I know it's not necessarily actually being social whenever we have calls like this or whatever, because obviously it's still virtual or whatever. But even I find recently, since adding in the monthly one-to-one check-in calls with everybody, being able to catch up and actually have a conversation with people, and actually just some calls I don't even, we'll spend 5 minutes talking about the check-in and whatever else, and it's just fucking catching up with what's going on in life. And I felt so much better being able to do that, because generally whenever I'm doing a check-in, as you know, screen recording on my computer, I'm talking at you technically, but you're not there, and then you're just listening to me talking at you on the other side of it. So being able to have those calls and actually be able to catch up with people, and I'll always say I'm not really a people person, but I am for my people. So you guys, whatever, being able to have those calls, and even the calls on Wednesday night, things that I really look forward to. Okay, it's not actually I'm physically there with you, but it is in essence a social situation, and it's something that I'm very grateful for to be able to bring together. It's something that I often find that it's difficult whenever I'm talking to somebody on an initial call or whatever. I'm like, okay, this is what I do in terms of training, nutrition, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I also have this group that I can't really say that I did, but they're there and they really benefit everybody who's being there. And it is that social side. And even, what we're planning for September, although it's a pain in the ass making a decision for a big group of people, I'm looking forward to getting everybody together.
It's gonna be awesome.
Because again, it's people who speak in the chat every day. It's people who potentially never have met each other, people who have met each other the last time. And just getting everybody together to hang out, train, eat food, not drink Irish car bombs. They are officially banned.
That's definitely going to happen, but okay, go ahead.
But then do other cool shit, we're going to go to the arcade and we're going to play top golf and stuff like that. It's just going to be hanging out, and I think that is going to be cool. So yes, in terms of that, I'll get a lot from that in terms of the social side, and I hope that I can give a lot back in that sort of same way. Yeah,
and that those social interactions with people that have the same type of interests, that share the same type of hobbies, that share the same type of things as you, that's your tribe, right? When we're talking about tribes aren't, we're outside foraging food and things like that. It's, your mom, your dad, your spouse, your significant other, your partner, your kids, friends that you see at a baseball game. They have shared interests in your kids' success. Anything that contributes to your normal day of life and what your interests are your tribe. And we can have many tribes, and that's the thing. And I think, when you look at, like, you have close friends, that's obviously going to be more of your inner circle tribe, or close family members, it's going to be inner circle tribe. But there are other tribes that you can be a part of that have share the same interests with everything. And I think, that's an important piece of your day-to-day life that you should work on as part of your overall health and fitness. And, if you're interested in more information around this, there's a good paper through Caltech, caltech.edu. So if you look up just Caltech and social isolation, I just want to read the first paragraph here. It was social isolation has debilitating effects on mental health in mammals. For example, it is often associated with depression and post-traumatic stress disorders in humans. Now, a team of Caltech researchers have discovered that social isolation causes the buildup of a particular chemical in the brain, which is TAC2, and blocking this chemical eliminates the negative effects of isolation. The work has potential applications for treating mental health disorders in humans. So, there's a lot of research being done on this neuropeptide TAC2 and how it controls different brain states. And I think it's just interesting how, we're actually seeing some of the science behind this and saying, hey, it actually backs how we're feeling, and this is how we're feeling. This is why we're feeling certain ways, in ways that maybe we can combat that. So if you're feeling depressed, you're feeling, not great, you're having a bad day, go hang out with some friends, go grab some beers, or if you're not drinking, go grab a lunch with somebody that is part of your tribe. That will immediately increase your dopamine levels, increase your level of activity, allow you to be happier. And those resonating effects aren't going to just last for a couple hours. They can last for several days, weeks, if not longer. Social isolation is a horrible thing for us.
Yeah, and I think, exactly what you're saying, especially if you're working from home, because you don't have that social interaction, you're not going to the office. And, even if you start to think of that on a deeper level, like, you can literally sit here in your pajamas all day and do work. Like, so you have no, like, drive to get ready. You have no drive to, like, oh, I'm going to actually get dressed and feel good or look good or whatever it might be. So something that is, well, number one, outside work, but also something that can sort of get you to that state where you're actually going to socialize and be around people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we covered a lot on this podcast. I thought it was a good one. I was really excited about this.
At this point, I have no idea what I'm going to have the title. I think
what are we going to call this podcast? I'm not sure.
One specific thing that we talked about, but
we talked about a lot of different topics. But I think those were all important things to kind of go through, because again, we're all learning here, and this is a shared experience with everybody. So hopefully, as we're learning, you're learning, and vice versa. And if there's things that you want to share, hit us up. It's all just trying to figure out the best way we can communicate all this to you in ways that we can improve ourselves, right? It's improving ourselves every day and making ourselves better, which makes this an awesome place.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, hey, thank you all very much for hopping on the podcast. Definitely check us out on wehack.health. We Hack Health.
I updated the swag store for anybody who's interested. There's new merch available.
New swag, new merch. That's awesome. And please, if you can, share this with family and friends that you think would be finding this beneficial. The more folks we get, the cooler things we could do with, like, getting different podcast folks on, people that are, like doctors and PhDs. We want to get more folks coming into this and more guests and stuff like that. So please share us, and hopefully we'll continue to grow this podcast and make it as awesome as we can. So thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you. Catch you next week.
Later.